The offseason is truly here for the Cincinnati Bengals, and if you are excited, even if you're disappointed that the season is over, then type me in the comments section. I love the offseason. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. It's entertaining. It's enjoyable. You guys tend to tune in pretty darn well as well. So if you are excited for this offseason, type me in the comments section before we get going on the latest and greatest Bengals rumors and news out there. We're going to start with the latest on Tee Higgins. Joe Burrow doing a end-of-season press conference on Monday and during locker room cleanout day, says he wants and expects Higgins to return to Cincinnati despite his contract being up and him being viewed as one of the top free agents set to potentially hit the market. Here's what Joe said, quote, "It's no secret, our relationship. I expect T to be back. I think that's the sentiment in the locker room. We all want T back. We know what kind of player he is. We know what kind of person he is. He's what being a Bengal is all about." Now, I interpret this as Joe Burrow kind of subtweeting the organization, so to speak, if you ignore my inaccurate analogy, because it's not tweeting, it's speaking, and Twitter's that. Anyway, this is Burrow telling the team what he wants. This is him saying, hey, I want to pay Tee Higgins. So I've told you that privately. I'm going to say it publicly as well. I want one of my guys to return. Burrow also made the point to say the contract allows for this to happen. The contract is structured in such a way that it does allow the organization to pay Higgins if they so choose. Now, again, this comes down less about feasibility and more about choice. Do you want to pay him the type of money it will require? It is not a lock that Tee Higgins returns to Cincinnati. The way the Bengals operate as an organization, they will simply never be the same type of cash spenders that the Saints or Eagles are. That's not how they're going to operate, although they have broken some of their previous rules, so to speak. The Bengals have 5 options here, basically. Number 1, simply pay Tee Higgins whatever he wants. Number 2 is to franchise tag him for 1 year and then let him leave. The predicted franchise tag cost, by the way, is $21.66 million. As we'll get into, that's a lot of money. It's also tough for me to see the Higgins taking less than that on a per-year deal, given his agent, but we'll come back to that. Number 3 is your franchise tag and then pay Higgins later on in the offseason. Number 4 is you could tag and trade him. Doesn't happen all that often, but you could get probably a better pick back than you would via the free agency comp pick process, plus it'd be for this year. And option 5 is simply do nothing and let Tee Higgins walk. More on this to come, since it will be one of the biggest stories this year. Will Tee Higgins play for the Bengals in 2024? Type Y for yes or N for no with the pinned comment of today's video, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube. Now, make no mistake, Higgins' numbers weren't nearly as good as what they were previously. Now, there are always reasons and excuses. Reasons, he was banged up, his quarterback was hurt. Excuses, he actually dropped some passes, by the way. Overall, you have a receiver who's been a fringe or past 1,000-yard receiver each season. His average actually went up this year, by the way, in terms of his yards and catches this year. And I would expect a rather robust market for Tee Higgins, even with the down season. The reason being, it is not a good free agent class at wide receiver. Now, it's a good draft class, but Michael Pittman is another young receiver who, hasn't been, I think, overall as good as or consistent as Higgins has been. Mike Evans is great. Mike Evans is old. He's on the wrong side of 30. He doesn't have that much left. Marquise Brown, Calvin Ridley, former early round picks at wide receiver who, haven't produced the same way that Higgins has consistently produced. Darnell Mooney is, not that great either. So remember, franchise tag cost is $21+ million. If I were David Mulgeta, Higgins' agent who does a great job of getting his players the most money possible, ain't going to take a team-friendly discount, folks, he's not going to settle for less than $21 million a year. Because he'll say, you know what? Tag us, we'll take the 1 year of it and then cash in again at some point. Or I get the open market and I get to create a bidding war when it's not a great free agent class. 21+ million is in the top 10 of highest paid wide receivers per year. Could you get Higgins to like 18 million a year? I think it's possible. You also know that you're going to have to pay Jamar Chase 35 million a year. He's now eligible, by the way, but Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb are all about to get bags too. Last one to get paid probably gets paid the most. Higgins can get a bag if he can get to free agency. The things that agents want, because it is truly capitalism at its finest, it's an open market. His agent will try to make that happen. He will try to get Higgins as much as possible. That's why you hire a big-name agent, because you want to get paid, as all players should. The two sides were not all that close before the season began. And there was the report of, hey, yeah, he's not going to get paid. He's going to leave. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the Bengals change their tune this offseason. This will be a key storyline. The trade rumors will be back. They never made sense before this moment. Now you can actually make a decent argument for it. We will have all the offseason coverage you need. So make sure you are subscribed right here to Bengals Breakdown. Hit that sub button right now. There is some other news out there. Roster moves and front office coaching developments here. The Panthers have requested to interview Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, while the Raiders have requested an interview for senior personnel executive Trey Brown for their GM job. Both teams had interest last year. Callahan was among kind of the finalists in Indianapolis. Trey Brown also interviewed last year, or interviewed 2 years ago, I should say, for the Raiders. He had interest in the past as well. Let's start with Callahan. I think of your coordinators, this is maybe the biggest chance you have of losing one. Former Broncos assistant, of course, he's Bill's kid, and in theory would follow him wherever he ends up going. Lions quarterback coach, Raiders quarterbacks coach, and is now the current Bengals offensive coordinator, is very well liked within the team's locker room, and will probably get some credit for helping to maximize what you got out of Joe Burrow this year. Trey Brown, meanwhile, was at one point the Eagles' director of college scouting, took 2 jobs in the AAF and the USFL as high-ranking execs there, takes the Bengals scouting job. Do make note, the Bengals have a smaller front office, so Bengals scouts do more than like a normal Eagles scout would be. So that's still a step up for them. He is now their senior personnel executive. So keep an eye on Trey Brown losing, I think your other big name front office. Duke Tobin's not going anywhere, but Trey Brown certainly could. So when it comes to the coordinators, back to Lou Anarumo, who we'll spend some time on here momentarily, and Brian Callahan. Will the Bengals lose one of them? One for yes, or 0 for no. I think Callahan's coaching stock remains pretty solid. Lou Anarumo, his stock is down. Now, general rants here about the nature of coaching and all that stuff. The things that get you hired, the things that make us as fans and media want various coaches to be the head coach or the OC or whatever, it's directly based on the results. And the things that make you a great head coach, yeah, the results matter, but you might not be the offense coordinator anymore. You might not be the play caller. You're now doing a lot more than just that. So the things that make you a successful NFL head coach are not necessarily the same things that made you a successful coordinator, which makes it a little bit dicey. So I think Anarumo's stock is down, but I think there will still be some potential interest there. I think Callahan's stock is steady, if not up a little bit, since the Bengals got competent play out of a dude no one wanted in Jake Browning. Also worth mentioning, keep an eye on quarterbacks coach Dan Pitcher. He could very well end up getting an offensive coordinator job. I think he was among the running for the Cardinals gig last year, if I recall correctly. Wouldn't have been shocked if Anarumo had taken him if he had gotten that job too. So keep an eye on that one. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change on the Bengals coaching staff. Losing him to a promotion could certainly be an option. Now, we got a deal alert for you guys with Higgins' future kind of uncertain. The Bengals NFL Jam shirt is still available. Chatsports.com/Bengals Jam. It's Burrow and Chase. Producer Chris is too young to remember NFL Jam, but I certainly do. Get yours today, chatsports.com/Bengals Jam. There were 9 roster moves made yesterday. We put this in a short for you guys, by the way. Dominique Davis, Alan George, Nate Gilliam, Jeff Gunter, Shaka Hayward, Shed Jackson, Jackson Kirkland, which is tough to say back-to-back for me for whatever reason, Kwame Lassiter, and Kendrick Pryor all re-signed to the club on futures deals. These are guys that are going to be cheap, affordable, don't actually impact your salary cap space because you're in the top 51 stage right now, and they were almost always on your practice squad. You bring them back, and now you'll fight, and they will fight to make a 53-man roster, or at least a practice squad again next year. So cheap young guys that will keep an eye on their growth and development. Before we go, Ted Karras has won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Truly is one of the highest honors you can get outside of pure football play. And even with it, I think it's still pretty damn impressive because it means you're a good person too. So everyone show Ted some love for the award by spamming Ted in the comments section.